Welcome in. You are probably incredibly familiar with the endless, just ubiquitous conversation about artificial intelligence right now.
Oh, it is everywhere.
Right. It surrounds us every single day. You can't open a browser, you can't read a newsletter or sit in a strategy meeting without someone bringing up, technological disruption.
Or economic shifts, yeah.
Exactly. Automation taking over entire industries, all of that. But today's deep dive is going to shift that perspective completely.
Radically.
We are stepping entirely outside the usual parameters of the machine age discussion.
Because we are looking at a fundamentally different paradigm today. The framework we're analyzing treats computation not as an industrial tool, but really as an existential one.
And for this custom-tailored deep dive, we are examining excerpts from the Spectrix AI Manifesto.
A fascinating text.
It really is. It was authored by Carlton Doc C. Johnson, PhD, the managing director of the Spectrix Metaphysical Institute. And our mission today is to explore how Spectrix is using AI as what they call a computational bridge.
Right, a computational bridge.
Straight into human consciousness, information theory, and spiritual development.
And to set the stage for this, think about how traditional philosophy or metaphysics is usually framed, right? It's historically viewed as this very static discipline.
Very academic.
Exactly. Scholars studying ancient texts, asking qualitative questions about the nature of reality, the mind, the spirit. But Spectrix fundamentally challenges that static view by introducing a highly dynamic approach. So the core theme of our discussion today is really asking, what happens when ancient wisdom meets modern information theory?
Okay, let's unpack this because the manifesto introduces a massive structural shift in how we even define these fields.
Yeah.
Spectrix is moving away from classical metaphysics and operating under a new framework they call Active Systems Metaphysics.
The terminology alone there is great.
Right. It suggests this huge leap from just theoretical pondering to functional engineering.
Yeah, because in this new framework of active systems, metaphysics, consciousness, and cognition are viewed strictly as dynamic systems of information exchange.
Wow.
So think of human belief systems, internal monologues, behavioral loops, all of it as a continuous flow of data architecture. Under this lens, AI becomes the ultimate tool to study those intricate patterns of language and belief.
And Spectrix formalizes this approach through what they call the Synthetic Metaphysics Initiative.
Which is such a bold title.
It is, and the stated goal is highly ambitious. They aim to computationally analyze and quantify the classical triad of mind, body, and spirit.
Which sounds impossible until you look at the mechanics.
Right. And to ground this heavily theoretical concept in actual technological execution, the text really emphasizes Dr. Johnson's specific credentials. He recently completed the Live Artificial Intelligence Certification Program through wild success.
And that is a huge detail. That certification bridges two domains that traditionally operate in complete isolation from one another.
Complete opposites.
Right. On one side, you have the rigorous, highly technical deployment of modern language models. And on the other, you have these highly subjective transpersonal development theories. By getting this formal certification, the Institute proves they aren't merely philosophizing about minds and machines overlapping. They're technically certified to actually build and deploy these systems.
Yeah, it takes it out of the realm of science fiction. And the initiative itself is built on 3 distinct institutional pillars, which outline exactly how this works in practice. So the first pillar is titled the Algorithmic Oracle.
The algorithmic oracle.
Yeah, setting the sci-fi naming convention aside for a second, the mechanics here are dense. It's built to explore the information theory of mind.
What's fascinating here is how this research framework actually uses modern language models. They utilize these immense contextual windows to cross-reference massive bodies of global philosophical, spiritual, and psychological literature.
It's a huge scale.
Unbelievable scale. We're talking about ingesting thousands of years of human thought, everything from Vedic texts to Stoic philosophy, right up to modern cognitive science.
But, and this is the aha moment for me, if we look at those ancient texts, they are entirely unscientific by modern standards, right?
Sure.
So how does applying an AI to ancient mysticism yield functional data rather than just summarizing old poetry? The manifesto suggests this massive perspective shift for the reader. What if ancient metaphysical systems weren't purely mystical? What if they were actually early attempts to describe complex information structures and cognitive architecture?
Using the only vocabulary they had at the time.
Exactly.
Because ancient systems frequently used metaphors like karma or attachments. And through the lens of modern information theory, AI allows us to see these interdisciplinary connections at a scale that was previously impossible for a single human mind.
You just can't hold all that in your head.
You can't. A single human scholar simply cannot hold the entirety of global metaphysical literature and modern cognitive science in their working memory to spot the overlaps. But an AI can. It maps these ancient concepts directly to modern neurological frameworks, like dopaminergic reward loops.
So what does this all mean? I mean, practically speaking, mapping historical cognitive architecture is a massive academic achievement, sure, but how does that translate into actionable personal growth for you or me?
That is the big question.
And it brings us to the second pillar, AI-assisted transpersonal coaching. This is where the macro theory becomes micro practice.
Right. Spectrix is applying AI to practical therapeutic fields, specifically neurolinguistic programming, NLP, and cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
Which are heavily reliant on pattern recognition anyway.
Exactly. AI can process these large data sets, like session transcripts, to identify incredibly subtle linguistic markers. It can spot cognitive distortions and recurring emotional loops that human practitioners might completely miss.
Because humans get tired. A practitioner might have a dozen clients, they suffer from fatigue, they might miss a tiny shift in how a client uses passive voice over 6 months.
But the machine doesn't get tired. It processes the text and flags the anomaly.
But we have to mention the crucial caveat here.
Oh, absolutely vital.
Both Dr. Johnson and the manifesto strongly emphasize that this is not the automation of healing.
Not at all.
AI is strictly a diagnostic support system. It does not replace the practitioner.
It can't. A machine can parse 1 million words a second, but it has zero lived experience. It doesn't know what grief feels like.
Right.
So it provides the human practitioner with a highly detailed diagnostic map, giving them greater clarity to guide a person's self-awareness. It actually frees up the human to do what humans do best.
Empathize. Here's where it gets really interesting. When you start deploying advanced pattern recognition into people's minds and unresolved emotional loops, the conversation inevitably shifts to ethics.
It has to.
Which is the third pillar, the ethics of conscious computing. Most of the tech world is worried about algorithmic alignment, like mitigating the risk of AI writing bad code or spreading disinformation. But Spectrix asks a much deeper philosophical question. How do we ensure that artificial intelligence remains a servant to the human spirit?
Because we have to remember what AI actually is. It's effectively a mirror of collective human consciousness. It reflects patterns derived from human data.
Right. Our forums, our literature, our arguments online.
Exactly. If the training data is fractured and anxious, the model reflects that. Therefore, we need conscious computing that is explicitly designed to enhance human agency and creativity, not diminish it.
So to structure these guardrails, the host, or rather the institute, walks the reader through a 5-principle ethical framework. Let's go through how they responsibly integrate this, starting with principle 1, spiritual sovereignty.
This principle affirms that the human soul is essentially non-computable.
I love that phrase, non-computable.
Right. AI's role here is simply to reduce informational noise. It untangles your linguistic habits so you can hear your own inner guidance better. It's a clearing mechanism, not a steering wheel.
Then we have principle 2, data sanctity and the digital temple. Obviously, client data in this kind of deep emotional work is incredibly sensitive.
Highly vulnerable.
So it's kept in highly secure environments, never used to train public models without consent. But here is this highly specific, memorable detail that really anchors this trust. It's backed by Dr. Johnson's dual background.
Yeah, this is brilliant.
He has a background in metaphysical science, sure, but he is also a professional accountant.
A professional account. The juxtaposition is just fantastic.
It is. Metaphysics deals with the boundless and abstract, and accounting deals with the rigid, uncompromising reality of the ledger. An accountant locks down data. Zero exceptions.
It grounds the ethereal perfectly. Moving to principle 3, we have algorithmic transparency.
Which means no black boxes.
Exactly. Any AI contribution to a diagnostic insight or recommendation is always explicitly disclosed. They firmly separate human discernment from computational analysis, so the client always knows who or what is talking.
Which is so important for trust. And that leads into principle 4, anti-reductionism. The text stresses that humans cannot be reduced to data sets.
AI loves to categorize things. It wants to put you in a predictive box.
But this principle forbids that. AI should reveal your potential, not impose rigid predictive models on your human identity. You are not a statistical probability.
And finally, principle 5, which really acts as the ultimate failsafe. the human-in-the-loop mandate.
Every single AI insight must be reviewed by a human practitioner.
It has to pass through ethical discernment, lived experience, and what they call somatic awareness, the physical intuition of the human body before it is ever used in personal development.
The machine finds the pattern, but the human decides if it actually matters.
Exactly, a true partnership.
So looking at the totality of this deep dive into the Spectrix AI manifesto, the core conclusion is profound. The challenge of the future isn't just building stronger machines, it's guiding them with wisdom. The goal is a partnership between consciousness and computation, honoring both human complexity and AI's analytical power.
It's a beautiful vision. And taking all of this in, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over that builds on this text. The manifesto notes that AI mirrors our collective human consciousness, because it's trained on our data, right?
Right.
Well, if tools like AI-assisted transpersonal coaching actually succeed in helping massive numbers of individuals resolve their emotional loops and cognitive distortions, and those healthier individuals then go on to generate new data online, could AI eventually evolve from a mirror of our collective anxieties into a mirror of our collective healing?
Wow.
What does a technologically enlightened feedback loop actually look like?
That is an incredible question to walk away with. What does a technologically enlightened feedback loop look like? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you a totally new lens on both the future of tech and your own consciousness. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.